Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're covering 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, co-founder of PayPal, first outside investor in Facebook, and one that genuinely changed how a lot of people think about building products and companies. In this video, we'll go through the core ideas, what I think holds up well, and where I'd push back a little. Let's get into it. It's less a framework or methodology and more a way of thinking about competition, about innovation, and about what actually creates lasting value. In this video, we'll go through the core ideas, what I think holds up well, and where I'd push back a little. Let's get into it. The book started as a set of notes from a Stanford course Thiel taught on startups. A former student, Blake Masters, compiled and refined them. And the result is one of the more thought-provoking business books of the last decade. The central distinction Thiel makes is between what he calls horizontal progress and vertical progress. Horizontal progress is copying what already works, taking something from one place and spreading it to another. Globalization is the clearest example. Vertical progress is doing something genuinely new, going from 0 to 1, creating something that didn't exist before. His argument is that most business thinking is focused on horizontal progress, on competing better within existing markets, and he thinks that's the wrong game to be playing. The most provocative idea in the book, and the one that gets the most pushback, is Thiel's claim that competition is for losers. His reasoning is this: in a perfectly competitive market, prices get driven down, margins disappear, and no single player captures meaningful value. Everyone works hard, and nobody really wins. The businesses that generate extraordinary returns, he argues, are the ones that escape competition entirely. Not by being slightly better than their rivals, but by being so different that comparison stops making sense. He calls these creative monopolies. Not monopolies in the illegal price-fixing sense, but companies that are so good at what they do that no close substitute exists. Google in search, iPhone in the early smartphone market. The point isn't market domination for its own sake. It's that monopoly is what allows a company to actually think long-term, invest in its people, and build something durable. To build that kind of position, Thiel identifies 4 characteristics that tend to show up together. Proprietary technology, something that's not just better, but meaningfully better, ideally by an order of magnitude. Network effects, where the product becomes more valuable as more people use it, which makes it progressively harder to displace. Economies of scale, where growing the business makes it structurally stronger over time. And brand, a genuine identity that carries weight beyond the product itself. The strategic implication he draws from this is counterintuitive. Start small and monopolize. Don't try to enter a huge market and grab a small slice. Find a very specific niche where you can be dominant, own it completely, and then expand from there. Amazon started with books, not because books were the end goal, but because it was a defined, manageable market, where they could build infrastructure, trust, and operational excellence before expanding into everything else. Another idea I found genuinely interesting is what he calls secrets. Thiel's argument is that the most valuable businesses are built on insights that most people don't see. He asks a simple but uncomfortable question: what do you believe that almost nobody else agrees with? His point is that if your business idea is something everyone already agrees is a good idea, you're probably already too late. The best opportunities tend to live in the uncomfortable, contrarian space. He also introduces 7 questions he thinks every new venture needs to answer honestly, covering technology, timing, market size, team, distribution, durability, and insight. It's a useful checklist. Less as a formula and more as a set of pressure tests for assumptions you might be glossing over. The most practically useful thing to take from this book is probably the habit of thinking about definite versus indefinite approaches to the future. Thiel makes a distinction between people who have a specific, concrete plan for what they want to build, what he calls definite optimists, and people who believe the future will be generally fine but don't have a clear point of view on how to shape it. His argument is that the most important things tend to get built by the first group, not because optimism is enough, but because a specific hypothesis gives you direction. The practical question this raises is simple, but worth sitting with. Do you actually have a point of view about where things are going, or are you mostly reacting? Now, the honest part, because this book has some real weaknesses. The biggest issue is that a lot of Thiel's arguments are stated with more certainty than the evidence supports. The idea that you should always aim for monopoly is compelling in the abstract, but the path to get there is genuinely unclear in most cases. There's also a survivorship problem. Thiel's examples, PayPal, Facebook, Google, Apple, are among the most successful companies ever built. Drawing universal lessons from them is a bit like studying lottery winners to develop a strategy for winning the lottery. The principles might be real, but the sample is heavily skewed. Some of the more philosophical sections also feel like they're trying to do too much. The discussion of founder psychology, for instance, is interesting but speculative. And the comment about successful founders having traits associated with Asperger's is the kind of observation that sounds provocative but doesn't hold up well. It's one of the weaker moments. And finally, the book is firmly rooted in Silicon Valley culture and the world of venture-backed technology startups. If you're building a service business, a local company, or anything outside that context, you'll find yourself doing a lot of translation. The principles don't always travel cleanly. 0 to 1 is worth reading, not because it gives you a system to follow, but because it genuinely challenges some assumptions. The core question it keeps circling back to, what do you believe that almost nobody else agrees with, is one of those rare prompts that's actually hard to answer honestly. And the emphasis on building something new rather than competing slightly better within an existing market is a useful corrective to a lot of conventional startup advice. It's a book of ideas more than a book of instructions. If you're looking for a framework, this probably isn't your first stop. But if you want to think differently about what you're building and why, it's a genuinely stimulating read. Hope this gave you a clear and honest picture of what the book is actually about. If you want to check it out, the link is in the description along with a few other reads worth your time. And if you enjoy this kind of content, subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.